Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Night Grumpy Sound Guy Show. I am your host, Mr. J.R. Everhart from CLP Audio and Staging LLC, right here in the Mid-Atlantic. This week's subject is going to be about dealing with house sound systems that might be a little problematic and dealing with house sound engineers who may be great or problematic. So we're going to kind of poke and prod around all that stuff today and try to give you some tools and how to navigate that situation in a healthy way and not end up being the grumpy sound guy that no one wants to work with. Kind of where we are here on this channel, so stick around. You don't want to miss a second of today's show. Hey guys, if I can have literally 60 seconds of your time here just to ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It costs absolutely nothing to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you can help us give you more of this content on the free side of the channel. Also, if you're really digging what we're doing here and you're digging the Grumpy Sound Guy content, please consider joining the membership side of the YouTube channel. It costs about $5 a month, so about the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee or whatever. You can become an inner circle supporter of the Grumpy Sound Guy and the content that I'm putting up. We'll get all kinds of really cool one-on-one live chat stuff in there, group chat stuff, all that sort of thing. Plus you'll get content that is posted there that will never become public, so make sure you get over there and check that out. And thank you for supporting everything that I'm doing here with the Grumpy Sound Guy. Okay, welcome back. So we are talking about house sound systems. Some of them are really cool. Some of them are really horrible, In my area, I will say that of the systems I have heard, and I have not heard all of the installed house sound systems around the area because there's a lot of them in DC and Baltimore. Of the ones that I have heard, I will say conservatively, 50% of them are a mess and they're a lot to deal with. And they have blown drivers that don't work, and they're using cheap generic line arrays or Chinese line arrays or any of those things. And I have done videos on Chinese gear and that sort of thing, but if you're a bar owner watching this by some freak chance, please don't buy a Chinese line array. It's cheap for a reason, okay? Because here's what happens when you do that. It may sound okay when you first hang it, but you're not going to get any kind of longevity out of that stuff. Because when you have a system, like it's really popular in the Mid-Atlantic for the club to provide front of house. So basically it's racks and stacks. So basically you got front of house line array hanging or point source, whatever is hanging, an amp rack and a processor. And when you come in, you're just going to give them a left-right out of your mixer, and you're going to mix on their rig, and then you bring whatever monitor rig your band needs. Whether if it's ears, obviously you have an ear rig. If it's wedges, then you need to bring wedges and amps to power those wedges, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a popular thing in our area. And there is no house sound guy in that scenario. You are the house sound guy for the night. The problem is, man, these bar owners, man, they just cheese out these rigs, you know what I mean? And what's going to happen with that Chinese stuff is you're not going to, because you have this revolving door of sound engineers coming in there on all different levels of skill set, not everyone's going to understand where the limit of that system is. Now you can squash it in a compressor in the processor, and try to protect the rig that way. But over time, you're still going to lose drivers, and that means you're going to have, let me put it in layman's terms, speakers are going to blow. You know, the little 8-inch or 10-inch speakers that are in them, usually it's the horns that go. You know, those Chinese horns just cannot take any abuse, and they get a little bit of heat in them and they're done. You know, that's just the way it goes, man. So then you got a rig that's only partially operational, and now you're a club that nobody wants to play because your house rig is horrible. So then you get, you know, your tech guy who may or may not know anything about pro audio to go in there, tear those boxes down and replace drivers. They typically will replace them with whatever, you know, the cheapest alternative is, or something like that. I see a lot of Eminence drivers going back into, you know, these rigs that does have, you know, some decent durability to them, but they just sound like trash, you know. And I had a guy look me right in the eye and tell me that he reloaded his Chinese rig with all JBL stuff. And I can tell you by listening to it, I'm someone who mixes on JBL all the time. They're Eminence drivers. Eminence by JBL, and they call that JBL. Eminence is the lower consumer line of JBL drivers that you can buy at like Parts Unlimited or any Amazon, you know, any number of online conglomerates. In some cases, if you buy the higher end stuff, it's decent. These guys are usually going for the middle of the road Eminence stuff, and it's not great, dude. You know, I heard a story. I did not hear the rig myself, but here's an example of what I'm talking about. I heard a story of a local small production company, some young guys, who had an opportunity to go into a big live music room and do sound and lighting. They went in and put in a Chinese line array that they said was spec'd to D&B specs. There should be your first sign right there. It's either D&B or it's not D&B. You know what I'm saying? It isn't just spec to D&B. No, it's still Chinese, dude. They hung this stuff up in the room, and this room does nationals, you know, B nationals and that sort of thing. A lot of big regional tribute bands, that sort of thing, decade bands. And it wasn't 3 months, and they were starting to have massive driver failure in those boxes, to the point where they kind of had a big falling out with ownership and pulled their rig out in the middle of the night, and then that was that. Because the production company, I'm going to say, was too inexperienced to understand exactly what they were getting when they bought the rig. And then when it started failing, instead of owning the fact that they bought a cheap Chinese rig, they wanted to blame it on the venue or any guest sound engineers the venue was bringing in on that rig. So now the production company is stuck holding the bag. They're making payments on this rig that now they have to go back through and start replacing drivers in, because look, you know, band engineers, tribute band engineers, B National band engineers, they're always going to push your rig into the red, because their little locker room saying is, if we ain't redlining, we ain't headlining. So if you don't build a rig that is durable enough to handle that, it's never going to last, man. It's never going to last. And that created a whole mess of nightmarish things in that venue. The venue was smart, opened up their checkbook, picked up the phone, called their local pro touring, you know, company, and they came in and put a rig in there that is correct. They actually put an L-Acoustics rig in there, you know, and now you got what you really need. Now, I know L-Acoustics is an extreme example of going the other way, because I know how expensive that stuff is, but you could have went with any number of RCF rig, or, you know, even the JBL stuff, you know, the VTX stuff, or the new SRX 900 series line array stuff is actually really good. You know, for a middle market room like that, they could have hung 6 boxes aside and it would have been fine. The room seated about 800 people, you know. I think it would have really got it done, you know, but that's neither here nor there. So when you're walking into a room like that and you're doing sound check and you're realizing, like I did a huge beachfront room a few years back, and they had an old Vertec rig that only about halfway worked hanging. As soon as we started sound check, I'm like, oh man, I'm like face palming, like this is going to be a long night because half a rig don't work, you know. And I'm trying, in that case, was trying to cover a room of about 3,000 people. And you know, you just make the best of it, man. You lean heavily on your fundamentals as a sound engineer. You know, if you feel yourself hitting the compressors really hard, pull some of the low end back so you can at least get some decent, you know, mid and high range reproduction, because they're probably, well, I'll almost guarantee they're not doing multi-band compression. They're just doing across the board 20 to 20, you know, compression. And, you know, if the low end is making that compressor, you know, squish you, you can get that compressor to ease up a little bit if you pull the kick and the bass guitar back some in the mix. And then you'll get the vocals, the keyboards, and the guitars, you know, punching out front the way you really need them to. Then you can slowly bring that low end back up to where you feel it hitting the compressor and starting to attenuate some of that mid and high range reproduction, and just leave it there and like, this is where it's got to live. I mean, I can only work with what you give me to work with, and this is what I have to work with. And a lot of times you have to kind of just say, this is it. This is what the system's going to give me. I need to be happy with that and know that this is out of my control, and I just need to make the best of what's here. And, you know, communicate that to your band if the band is who's paying you, you know, for the gig. If the bar is paying you for the gig, respectfully tell them at the end of the night, like, you know, your system really could use some maintenance. You know, I'm not convinced everything is working in the system. It's a poorly designed system. No bar owner wants to hear that, hey, you need to replace your line array because that's expensive. But at the same time, it's like, golly, dude. I mean, I know some of these rooms, I can think of one room right now that has just some generic no-name line array in there that's been reloaded with Eminence drivers multiple times. And you would be better off if you just hung a couple 850 boxes in there. Like KF 850 boxes, you put one of those on each side and just open it up, it would cover that room just fine. You know, you don't need the throw of a line array in that venue because the venue's only, you know, 80 feet deep or 90 feet deep, something like that. And it's only about 40 or 50 feet wide. So a point source rig like a KF 850 rig would kill in that room. And you'd have a system that's super durable and would last you for 20 years with minimal driver failure, you know. So that's kind of, you know, what you got to do when you get in those rooms. You know, there's a lot of rooms, small rooms that you end up mixing in that has a really loaded with like subpar active boxes. Like I was just in a club the other night that had Mackie Thump powered boxes. You know, they had like, I don't know, 4 of them hanging all the way around the room. And I don't even know what the subs were. The subs did look passive, like maybe they were Yamaha single 18s or something. I don't know. You know, it was trash. We weren't using that. I hauled my rig in to that venue because it's just miles ahead of where their stuff is. But you know, I know some of these bars that won't allow you to do that. They want you to use the house rig. And the house rig is just at best like some QSC K2s or, you know, something like that. If the rig is configured correctly, you know, for the room in terms of throw and coverage, maybe if it's a shallow room, if it's a tiny room, you know, that rig's probably great for that room. But, you know, if it's a room that has any depth, you know, or any width, you know, to any sort of measurable degree, then you're probably going to struggle to cover the room correctly with a little rig like that. And then what I find in those scenarios is the smaller the room, the lower the skill set was to the guy who actually installed the stuff, which means that the system processor is usually out in left field somewhere. You know, like it's a mess. Crossover points are jacked. You know, I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I've seen some rooms where they had no system processing going on. You know, I mean, with modern digital consoles, you can get away with that on an active rig, but you better really know what you're doing, man. You know what I mean? You better know what you're doing. So use the KISS acronym. Keep it simple, stupid when you get into these scenarios. Understand that if you have a powered QSC rig, you're probably not going to get, especially if you're in like a 100 by 100 room or something, you're not going to get some chest pounding kick drum. Quit trying to achieve that. Get the kick in the mix right there on the dance floor. Tell yourself you're just going to mix for the dance floor, and whatever the volume is off the dance floor, it's going to be whatever it is, because I'm limited by the resources you're giving me to do this show. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that's what we do as sound engineers, is we make it work. You know, we get in there and we try to put our best foot forward. We try not to go negative. You know, like, there's one room that I mix regularly that it's like a little piece of me dies every time I got to mix this room. But there's a lot of work there because it's a challenging room to mix, and you earn your money when you go in that room. You know, it just is what it is. They got a generic Chinese line array in the place, and there's no sense in crying over spilt milk. Go in there and put your best foot forward, get through the night, make it the best it can be, go home and forget about it, you know? That's the beautiful thing about live audio, is when the show's over, so's the mix. No one's ever going to hear that mix again. Let it go, dude. Don't carry it home with you. You know, go in there, deal with the challenges of the venue, and then let it go. You know, go home and enjoy time with your family and stuff like that. Now, moving on to dealing with house sound guys. This is a hot button subject. I have been a house sound guy more times than I can count, both inside the church market, where we had regular Christian nationals coming through that room and having to deal with a lot of band engineers and stuff like that, to being a house sound guy in a secular club. I've worked with multiple clubs, you know, in that capacity, and having to deal with, you know, the biggest thing from a sound engineer's perspective is, and I just had this not long ago, where I was working with a new band, and the guitar player obviously knew something about sound. You know, maybe he's got a home studio, maybe he's a great sound engineer. I don't know, because I don't know the guy. You know, and he immediately starts barking orders at me about this, that, and the other. And I kind of took a deep breath, you know, and I'm like, if you just kind of calm your tits and just let us get through sound check, let us get through the first. We were in a small room. I didn't want to do a 15-minute sound check with a room full of dinner people. You know, there's a dinner crowd there. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just do a line check for now. We'll get it all dialed in. We'll shape the mix in the first 3 songs of your first set, and everything will be fine. He kind of squawked a little bit, and, you know, almost threw a temper tantrum, like most guitar players do when they don't get their way. And then, you know, 3 songs into the first set, you know, it was everything they had hoped it would be, and then some. By the end of the night, they were telling me I was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Look, you know, when bands come at me with that kind of stuff, I'm always appreciative. I say thank you. I appreciate that. But I know they say that to most of the guys that they work with that can get through the night without the system catching on fire, okay? It doesn't really, those compliments isn't something that I really take to heart, you know? Because I have firsthand seen them say the exact same thing to sound guys that were way below my skill set. So take that as it will be, you know, take that with a grain of salt. The point is, I knew what I was doing and gave them everything they had wanted and then some. We had a great night, successful night. I didn't go dark, I didn't go negative, I didn't lose my temper with the guy or anything like that. I just let it go. When you walk into a venue, understand that house sound guy has been dealing with that every Friday and Saturday night. Some of these dock bars every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for however many years he's been there. Now, granted, he signed on for this, so I mean, that's all fine and good, but that isn't still not an excuse to treat him like a jerk, you know, or talk down to him. That nothing will trigger me more than you talking down to me. You know, if you want to have a equal altitude conversation, hey man, I'm all about it. You know, I love talking shop. I love talking tech. You know, I had a band just 2 nights ago. The bass player is a very accomplished sound engineer and owns his own studio and all that kind of jazz and everything, and came in and didn't like where I had my front of house speakers setting at. Hey man, no problem. I got no ego about this. You guys are paying the bill. I'm working for you, dude. It was totally okay. I moved the speakers exactly where he wanted them, and man, we had a great night. I thought it kind of cut off some of the high end in front of house. No one cares, you know? The band was happy. The audience was happy. Why should I give a rip? Pick and choose your battles, guys, you know? Pick and choose your battles. Because I could have stood there and argued with the guy like, you know, look, they're where they're at for a reason, because if we put them where you want them, it kills a lot of the high end. Just because of the way the room was designed. They had a kick wall down in front of the stage that will grab that high end. And thankfully, someone was smart enough to put some carpet against that wall so it doesn't ricochet back into the vocal mics. But you just lose some high-end reproduction out front. But hey, I don't give a rip, you know? I mean, this is a bar gig, dude. We're not mixing freaking Foo Fighters at Madison Square Garden here. You know, we're at some, you know, dirty rock bar in the middle of Maryland, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Put it in perspective. Pick and choose your battles, you know? I mean, I immediately started unplugging speakers and moving them around. Okay, no problem, dude. Let's do it. I got no ego. Let's have a good night. Let's rock it out. And I mean, it was fun. It was fun. You know, I'm the only guy in the room sitting there with, you know, wanting a little more high end out front. No one else cared. Even the guy that was working with me was like, dude, it sounded great. I'm like, okay. I have no ego, dude. I don't care, you know? I'm working for the band. If that's what the band wants, I give them what they want, you know? Now, when I'm a house sound engineer, well, then I have a little bit more control because I'm working for the club, not necessarily the band. Now, let's never forget that you wouldn't have a job if there wasn't bands rotating in and out of your venue. So quasi, maybe you need to really think about the fact that the band is part of your pay framework. Because without the band, you wouldn't have a job, even though the band's not paying you. There's some touchy territory there to navigate. I got it. I get it. You know, I mean, it is what it is. But as a sound engineer, being the guy that is, you know, house sound guy that's mixing that room, you know, 150 times a year, I got the room dialed in. So there's not really a whole lot that you're going to come to the table with that's going to make me want to change what I'm doing, because what I'm doing has been proven. And I may be a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, but I may be a little bit more forward about it being the way it is and take time to explain why it is the way it is. And, you know, no room is perfect. There's going to be dead spots in rooms. None of these rooms were built for live entertainment. They were built to serve alcohol and food. And then they shoved a stage in the corner of the venue or at the end of the room in the venue, and bam, now it's a live music venue. No one treated the room acoustically. We're dealing with all kinds of, you know, goofy stuff like that all the time. Don't ever forget that if you're a band walking into a room like that. You know, especially if the sound engineer is working on a Chinese line array that's been handed to him by the bar owner, and the bar owner's just like, look, dude, this is what we're providing. Either work with it or we'll find somebody else that will. You want to work, or you want to sit at home on your couch? That's what the sound engineer is telling himself. If you don't want to work in that room, don't work in the room. If you're going to have a bad attitude every time you show up for work, you probably shouldn't be working in that room. It's just the way it is, dude. It's just the way it is. So think about that, you know. Now, if you go into a room where the sound guy is a belligerent prick and trying to tell you how to shape your guitar tone, or God forbid, somebody said in one of my videos, in one of my shorts, I don't know, about a week or so ago, about guys touching their guitar amp. I would never touch a guitar player's guitar amp in a million years. I don't know what the hell somebody's thinking by doing that, but the guy was rightfully mad, you know, about that, and jumped down the sound guy's throat. And I don't blame him. I would have jumped down his throat too. If I'm drumming, don't touch my drums. You know, hang your mics and allow me to move the mics around where I want them, you know, on my drums, so they're out of the way, so I'm not smacking and beating your mics up. You know, especially like the Sennheiser E604s, dude, they're plastic, man. They're not going to take a whole lot of abuse from drumsticks. You know, I mic a lot of my rack toms from underneath, especially if there's a lot of cymbal, you know, stuff going on above the toms, like splashes and, you know, that sort of thing. I don't want my mics beat to death. So, you know, I'm always the guy that when I hang drum mics on a kit, I always tell the drummer, like, dude, if you want to move these around somewhere, I won't get mad. I'm not that guy. You know, move them around where you're comfortable, because if he's comfortable, then he's not beating my mics up. So, I mean, who the hell do you think you are messing with somebody's guitar amp or their bass amp? Or God forbid, get on somebody's keyboard and start moving patches around and that sort of, like, you need smacked in the head, you know, if you're acting like a throat punched, you know, if you're acting like that, you know, that's so far outside my realm of how I do business. I don't even get it. You know, even when I provide backline and I'm providing guitar amps and stuff, I don't touch them. I let the guitar players dial that stuff in, you know? They're the ones playing through the amp. Even though I own the amp, I still don't go over there and mess with their tone. You know what I'm saying? I just don't. Because I think that's rude. I don't think that's your place to do that. You know, they're the ones that, you know how to shape their guitar tone, their bass tone, you know, and things like that, their keyboard patches. Stay the hell out of the way, dude. Stay the hell out of the way. But if you go in one of these venues and you get an arrogant prick for a, you know, for a house sound guy, it kind of comes back to just try to make the best of it. You know, don't try to de-escalate the temperature of the conversations. You know what I mean? Don't get into conflict with the guy, even if you don't agree with what he's saying. Now, obviously, if he's doing something that's detrimental to your performance, you got to say something. But the way you express your displeasure with this guy is at the end of the night with the manager or the bar owner. And that's when you look the guy in the eye and you say, look, we play a lot of venues, and your house sound guy is a jerk. And he's hard to work with, and he really doesn't come across like someone who knows what they're doing. He's a lot of mouth. He knows how to talk, but his mix isn't delivering what this system could be delivering. So I'm just letting you know. Maybe you know that and you're okay with that, but I'm just telling you from a band's perspective, this isn't a place that we'll put on high priority of wanting to return to because of your sound engineer. That usually gets somebody's attention. If the bar owner knows that the guy sucks, but he works for $75 a night, and that's just what the bar is going to pay, hey, then it's up to the band to decide whether or not they want to play that venue. It's just the way it is, dude. It's just the way it is. You know what I mean? So something to be said for all that kind of stuff. I will say as a whole, most of the house sound guys that I know, that I'm friends with, are really skilled and really know what they're doing, you know? I know a handful of band engineers that travel with their band. Excuse me. They know what they're doing. They're guys that I can trust. You know, they have put up with me, you know, and I have put up with them, and we've developed a rapport with each other. And I know when these guys come to the table, I can hand them my system without worry. Like, there it is, dude. Whatever you need. Compressors are wide open. You know, you do your thing, man. You know, just treat the system right. And they always do, you know, because we have built that kind of rapport with each other. But I can also sit here and tell you a handful of guys off the top of my head that are house sound guys in really nice venues around the area who don't have a friggin' clue. I stood in a venue not long ago, and the guy standing there bragging about how he has 35 years in this business, and he couldn't mix his way out of a wet paper bag if his life depended on it, and has a reputation of destroying mixes. I can't believe he even got the gig. He must be working for peanuts, is all I can figure out. But when you got a guy like that to deal with, the best thing I tell bands to do is bring your own sound guy. You know, even if you're a band that doesn't normally carry your own sound guy, call somebody you trust and have them come in and mix you in those problematic rooms. Because most bar owners are okay with that. Because then their house guy just becomes a liaison to kind of just work with the band engineer and the house system to make sure they get connected correctly, or they get their show file loaded into their M32 correctly, or whatever. Or if they're bringing their own mixer, you know, get them tapped in right, and, you know, just kind of stand back and let them do their thing. You know, so that is a real efficient way to deal with problematic sound guys in a house situation. So I hope this stuff kind of made sense to you. I hope it helped you out. hit me up in the comments, dude. You know, let me know your horror stories with house sound guys. If you're a house sound guy who wants to, you know, voice your side of the conversation, I would love to hear that. Absolutely love hearing your comments. I always read all your comments, even though some days it's like 150, 200 comments to get through. I still try to at least skim through them and read as many comments as I can every day. I love you guys, man. I really appreciate your support here on the channel. As I said earlier in the video, I want to repeat it here at the end. If you really dig this content and you want to support this, consider being a member. Consider being a member of the channel. I mean, there's plans as low as like $5 a month, man. And then you get on the member side where I really open up more about my own personal experiences in the business. And we talk about things there that rarely ever get on the public side. In fact, those videos specifically will never be released to the public. Those are member-only videos. They will always be member-only videos. And if you're not a member, you're not going to see that content. So YouTube is the only place that I post long format videos. You know, I do shorts or at least under like 3-minute kind of videos over on TikTok. Facebook typically only gets, you know, shorts or reels, and they will occasionally get a live. I'll do a live on Facebook from time to time. But yeah, think about being a member. Get in the cool club, dude. Get in that inner circle. Get in here at the table with all the cool kids. All right, I love you guys. I'll see you next week.